Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on what to do 60, 30, 14, 7 and one day before the GMAT. So basically this webinar is going to be focused about the ideal test schedule. How should you go about your GMAT test? What should you do on various days? How should you pace yourself with respect to your prep? So it's a very detailed webinar. It will actually help you learn a lot of things which people who score a 700 plus do. So in this webinar, I'm going to cover all of that. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on wherever you are. I'm Piyush, and before I proceed, I would like to know if all of you can hear me loud and clear. Just a quick audio check before I actually get started with the webinar. So please do let me know if my voice is clear to all of you. I would just wait to hear from you guys in the chat over here. Okay, let me see on the other window as well. I guess I have the webinar live. I don't see any comment from anyone yet. I just want to know whether my voice is audible to all of you. So do say a yes if my voice is audible. That way I'll get to know that you guys can hear me loud and clear. Okay. Still no responses. Okay. Still no responses. Okay. Great. I see a few responses from Abhijit, Shivam, and Sanskar. Thank you so much for letting me know that my voice is clear. Great, guys. So let's get started without any further ado. So a quick intro about me. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Piyush and I'm going to be your main host. I have about 8+ years of experience mentoring students targeting MBA from Tier 1 schools globally. I have helped many students get into the top B schools, including the Wharton, Stanfords, Harvards of the world. I've prepared and taught for both CAT and GMAT. CAT is the Indian version of GMAT. You can say it like that. I have prepared and taught for both. I've scored a 740 on GMAT myself and a 99.9 on CAT. I have actually struggled a lot in my prep. So from that experience, I'm going to tell you a lot about what you should do. I have a comment from Sanskar. He says, I have my GMAT in a month and exactly I joined for this. So great, Sanskar. I'm going to cover a lot about that as well. And personally, I like analyzing trends and data to come up with strategies. So that's what I like. I like talking about strategies, and this webinar is about strategy. So this is gonna be very, very interesting. We're gonna discuss a lot about how should you strategize every single day of your prep, like in general, how you should do it. Okay, so let me tell you the structure of this webinar. So 3 sections to this webinar. Very quickly, in a couple of minutes, I'll tell you who we are, what is that we do at GMATWhiz, those of you don't know about us. About 1 hour is what we are going to spend on the main part. It might take us 60 to 70 minutes approximately. And then for the third section, I'll open it up for an open-ended Q&A where you guys can ask any question about whatever we have discussed today. You can ask any questions around that. So without any further ado, let's get started. So GMATWhiz is world's only truly personalized course, in the sense that, again, a lot of courses say that they are personalized, but in reality, not like most of them are not really using artificial intelligence or high-end technology to personalize learning. At GMATWhiz, we truly believe in doing that, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we are offering our technology is one of the biggest reasons why we are offering a personalized study plan for every single student who studies with us. And the best part about the study plan is not really static or a templatized plan. This is personalized for every user. It changes every week. It even changes the content in real time. You get real-time improvement modules based on how you perform. So the course a student gets at GMATWhiz may not be the same as any other student, because the course content is also changed by the AI in real time based on your performance. And if you work with us for the quant and verbal both sections, you also get access to dedicated mentors who will help you monitor your progress, will help you understand whether you're headed in the right direction or not. So you can schedule this call with your mentor every 15 days to connect and understand how are you progressing. This is one of the biggest reasons we have achieved amazing score improvement in the past. So very quick intro about GMATWhiz. That was about it. If you are interested in GMAT prep, you can check out our services. There is a detailed free trial which is available as well on our website. So let's get to the main part of the webinar. Now, the webinar title says that what to do 60, 30, and so on days. But I want to start a little earlier also, because see, I understand that some of you might be just 30 days away from your GMAT. Some of you might be 60 days away. Some of you might have just started, or some of you might be preparing from a long time. So what I want you to understand is I'm going to cover a little about people who have slightly more than 60 days as well. So overall, in general, you can think that whenever a person prepares for GMAT, there are three phases of learning that one goes through. Um, the first phase of learning is the main phase, the learning phase, where you actually learn all the concepts, as in whatever concepts are tested on GMAT, along with the right methods or right strategies to apply those concepts. In fact, this stage of your learning should be about 70% of the entire effort that you put in. In fact, that is should be the right thing to do. Now, this is where I am going to cover a little bit about planning for this phase. I'm not going to talk entirely about the learning phase because the webinar is more focused towards the last two phases, people who are very close to the GMAT and all. But still, I don't want to miss out on 70% of the part. So I'm going to cover a little about this learning phase where I'll help you understand how to plan for it. So this is one thing which I'm going to cover in the beginning. And then we will shift our attention to this last two phases, which is basically the 60 plus 60, 30 and 14-day regime. So I'll actually tell you how to break each and every part, how to do this. But fine tuning and mock phase are the later parts of your prep. This generally comprise about 30% or maximum 40% of your effort that you put in if you do the planning properly. So without any further ado, let's start with the learning phase. How do you plan for the learning phase? As I said, I'm not going to get deep into what do you do in the learning phase at every step, but I'm going to quickly tell you how to plan. So the first thing that one needs to do, in case you're just starting your prep and you are like still thinking, okay, how do I go about it? Because I am talking to a lot of people who are targeting round one and just thought about preparing for the GMAT. So I know that there will be many of you who have just started the prep as well. So this is for you guys. First thing that you have to do is identify your target score. Now, what I mean by this is I don't mean to say that you have to identify your overall target score. I'm pretty sure that that is something which most of you do, like reading online blogs and articles and checking out the school websites which you're targeting and all of that. But you have to also identify your sectional targets. Okay, it's very important to break it down into sectional targets, because unless you have a sectional target, a proper sectional target in mind, sometimes it gets very difficult for you to actually understand what is the right aim, like what is the goal overall. So important to understand the sectional targets. Now, there are two categories that you can fall into. And now this categories you can understand probably by taking a mock test or diagnostic test, or by just knowing yourself better. So it's possible that out of the two sections which are quant and verbal in GMAT, you are good in one section, as in you are much better in one section than the other one. Not just relatively better, you are much better in one section than the other one. If that is the case, you should try and maximize your score in that particular section. Okay. The second case is that you're probably equally good in both sections. You don't have a strength as such. You are equally good, very closely good in both the sections. It's almost similar overall. So in that case, you should focus on rather balancing the target. You should not try and maximize your score in one area. You should rather balance your target score. So let's just take an example to understand. So let's say your target score is something around a 720. Okay. So in case you are good in one section, and let's say that strong area of yours is quant, then ideally you should target something around Q50 and verbal 38. Okay. Now some of you might be thinking, Piyush, why have you written Q50? Why have you not written Q51? Again, you can target a Q51, but getting a Q51 is getting very difficult these days. So more realistically, I would recommend you to look at a Q50 and verbal 38 kind of a split. That is the ideal split for you. Now, having the split in mind will actually help you understand what is the gap between where you are today and where you want to reach. So you can actually plan to bridge that gap better. Okay. So understand this part very quickly. Then if you're, let's say, good in verbal instead of quant, then you should actually try and target 46 in quant and 43 in verbal. That should be the ideal breakdown of a target score. Okay. Now, what about the case when you're equally good in both? Then ideally you should try and balance the score. So quant 48 and verbal 40 is probably what you should target. Again, quant 48 and verbal 40 require almost similar amount, a similar level of skill sets in quant and verbal. So quant 48 and verbal 40 is the right target score for you. Okay, so first thing you need to understand it, what is your right targets? What is the right target score sectionally? Now, once you understand this, you can actually identify how many hours of prep or how many days of prep you would require. In general, based on your current score and based on your target score, the time that you need to prepare for could be anywhere between 100 to 300 hours, 350 hours also. Okay, I'm talking about general people. Again, for there are extreme cases where people take even much longer than that. But in general, 100 to 350 50 hours of effort, consistent, proper, directed efforts are enough if you want to prepare. So depending on how much time you are planning to put in, it can be up to 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months also that you might need to prepare for. So what you need to now do is, before you create a study plan for yourself, before you create a proper plan of action for yourself, you have to understand the right sequence of studying as well. That, okay, how do I start my studies? How, in which sequence should I go about my studies? So in terms of right sequence of studies, let's talk about that for individually quant and verbal. I'm going to talk about both because this is very important. Many times I speak to students and they tell me that, okay, I'm starting my prep, but I'm just focusing on doing questions from the official guide or just practicing questions from this and that. But I very, very rarely see people telling me that I'm focusing on doing in this particular sequence. Very few people plan it that way. So very important for you to understand that what is the right sequence and how you should start and how you should go about each step of it. Okay. So in order to understand the right sequence for verbal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what are the skills that are tested on verbal. What are the things that are tested? Not just SCCR and RC. More importantly, what are the skills that are tested? And from there, we'll understand what is the most logical sequence. So in terms of skills, if I talk about, there are 3 skills that are tested on GMAT verbal. The first skill is comprehension. Okay. Can you, given a piece of information, given a sentence or a passage or an argument, whatever, can you understand the crux? Can you understand the entire thing? Can you get the clear picture out of it? Not just a rough picture, a very clear picture out of it. Okay, that's the first skill which is tested. The second skill that is tested is analytical reasoning. If there are multiple pieces of information given, and there is something which is derived from that information, can you understand how the logic is flowing between those pieces? Can you understand the flaws between them? Can you analytically reason with the information provided and understand whether it is logical or not? That's the second skill that is tested on GMAT verbal. The third skill that is tested on GMAT verbal is, if there is a big piece of information given to you, can you focus on the main point? Can you understand the intent? And the reason these skills are tested are because all these skills are key managerial skills. These are going to be very, very important for you when you enter the B school and later when you actually join a corporate or start your own business as a manager. So these things are very, very important as a skill. So if I look at these skills and I kind of try and map this to individual areas of verbal, we will actually see what is the most logical sequence to study. So if you look at the first skill, comprehension, that is the only skill that is tested on SC. Again, grammar is also there. There are a lot of grammatical concepts which will be there. But if I talk about specifically the skill, only one skill is tested in SC, which is comprehension. You need to understand the meaning of what is being written over there. Okay, you don't have multiple pieces, so there's nothing about analytical reasoning or focusing on main point, but you just have to think about the meaning part. In critical reasoning, on the other hand, you are tested on both comprehension as well as analytical reasoning. You have to understand each piece and you have to also relate the meaning between multiple sentences to see whether there are any flaws or gaps in the information that is being provided. So in CR, both skills are required. On the other hand, in reading comprehension, you need to be good at all 3 things. You don't just need to relate information between multiple sentences. You also have to focus on the main point. You have to focus on the intent of the author. You can't just focus on what is written. You have to focus on why is it written. Okay, so a quick quiz time. I would like to know from you guys. I have told you what are the skills and how does this skills map to the various sections of verbal. Now you tell me how should you go about these 3 sections? What should be the right sequence? Okay, so what should be the right sequence? So Varun has a question. Varun says, would you recommend going for online coaching or just test series? So Varun, again, if you're saying just test series, it means that you are focusing on just practicing questions. So if you're someone who already knows all the concepts, who is sure about the methods that you're using, and you're getting a decent enough accuracy, you just want to practice tests and build the right test taking strategies, then go for just the test series. But if you need to work on the basic concepts and the methods also, probably you need to refer to some content for that. So online coaching might help you to do that. Okay, so I have a answer from Sanskar. Sanskar says SC, then CR, then RC. What about others? What do others think? What should be the right sequence, guys? I'll wait for some more responses. In the meantime, I'll have a glass of water. Okay, still don't see any other guy responding, any other person responding. What is the right sequence, guys, based on the skills? What do you think? Guys, I want to keep this session interactive. I just don't want it to be a one-way communication. I have 30 plus people over here and I see only one response till now. Okay. Everyone else is shy. Okay. Akshash is rather SCCRRC. Good. George also says the same. Thank you so much, guys, for responding. Again, let's keep it interactive. I just want to make sure that I'm able to actually take care of all your queries as well, all the comments. So if you get any question in mind, feel free to continue typing. I'm more than happy to take them up as you go. Okay, so Rahul is the only one who says RC, then CR, then SC. So see, honestly, I feel that SC, then CR, then RC will make a lot more sense. The simple reason for that is when you're doing sentence correction first, when you're doing this first, you just have to worry about one skill. You just have to focus on building one skill. Okay, think of it, Rahul, that if you start with RC, you have to focus on building all three skills. And let's say you don't do well on RC, then you will have to figure out which skill is that you're lacking. Okay, it's not just about practicing more questions. It's about I'm talking about approaching GMAT prep in a very scientific manner. So if you start the sentence correction, that will help you to build the comprehension skills really, really well. Again, you can do it any other way also, but that may not be the most effective thing to do. Now, then if you move to CR, then what happens is that your comprehension skills are in place. That is taken care of. So you only need to focus your attention on analytical reasoning. That's all. So you focus your attention on analytical reasoning, build that skill, and then only you should ideally move to reading comprehension. And that's when you focus on the skill, which is identifying the main point of the passage. Okay. So yes, very good point by Shekhar. SC first because of tricky modifiers in CR and RC on tougher questions that pushes you towards the wrong options. Yes. So basically, when you do SC first, what Shekhar is trying to say is you're able to understand the sentence construction better. Those additional pieces of information which are known as tricky modifiers, probably that's what you mean by that, Shekhar, that those additional pieces of information tweak the meaning a lot. They change the meaning a lot in many cases. Even small words impact the meaning, and that impacts in CR and RC. So that's why I talked about these skills. So if you go by this flow, that is the most logical thing to do. Now let's quickly look at verbal quant as well. Now, what is the right sequence for quant? Now, many people think that in order to do quant, like if I'm just starting my prep, I should do algebra first or number properties first and then move to the next area. Let's say word problems or then geometry and so on. However, that is not the most optimal thing to do because unlike verbal, in verbal skills are interdependent. I agree with that. But concepts are not interdependent. You are not going to be tested on modifiers in critical reasoning for sure. But in quant, what happens is even in one topic, like if you're doing prime numbers, which is a part of number properties, you might have to know exponents before doing prime numbers because you cannot prime factorize without knowing how to deal with exponents. And exponents is a part of algebra. So in quant, that does not work. You should not go module wise in quant. You should rather focus on completing all the basic topic first. Okay. Some of the basic topics are like number classification, unitary method, linear equation, and so on. Then once you're done with the basic topics, and first focus on building a very high skill level over here because these are some of the most important topics that will be tested on all the other areas. So make sure that you have a high skill level in the basic topics, and then only you should move to intermediate topics. Okay. So in the intermediate topics, there are many things which are covered. In fact, units, digit, linear equations, and so on. So then only you should move to intermediate topics. And once you have a strong hold over intermediate topics, then only you should move to advanced topics. Okay. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, Piyush, what is there in basic, what is there in intermediate, and what is there in advanced? So don't worry, I have kind of listed it down on the screen for you. And I don't want you to take a note of all this. Okay, there are 33 topics which are listed over here. So just have a look at it. If you want to take a screenshot, you can. Otherwise, I'll give you another meanings of finding this out yourself. Okay, but like what I mean to say over here is that if this is the right order, all the topics from number properties are in green, all the topics from algebra are in blue, and so on. So you can see how you need to mix these topics. And I've arranged these topics in the most optimal order, making sure that if you're moving to one thing, before that, whatever you need to know, you have covered it if you move in this particular sequence. This, in my opinion, my personal experience, is the most optimal sequence to go for quant. Okay, so make sure if you are just starting your prep, you should be following this sequence in order to prepare things properly at your end. All right. Now, Now that you know your target score, now you know in which sequence you have to prepare. So the next thing that you have to do is put all of this into a study plan. Kind of try and figure out that, okay, I will be completing this thing by this time, then this time, then I'll move to this particular things, I will complete it by this much time, and so on. So you have to create a proper study plan where you have clear targets and deadlines, because unless you have clear targets and deadlines, especially if you are a working professional, it's very difficult for you to complete your prep in a certain amount of time. You will continue to push your GMAT date, procrastination will happen, things will come into picture, and you will probably take much more longer than you decided. So it is very important that you have targets in place, have deadlines in place, that okay, I'm going to complete this by this much time. And when you are creating this, if you really want to achieve it properly, you need to take into account your strengths and weaknesses as well, because it is definitely possible that in your strong areas you will be taking less time to learn the same amount of things. So probably if you're doing 2 topics from your strong area and 2 topics from a weak area, in your strong area you'll do those topics much faster than you will do from the weak area. Similarly, you also have to take into account the time which is available with you. You cannot just say, okay, I have to complete my verbal section in a month. If you're someone who is just having 10 hours in a week to study, you cannot do that. And on the other hand, if you are someone who is studying full time, you probably don't even need 1 month to complete verbal. So you have to take into account the time available to make a realistic plan of action. You also have to take into account the sequence of learning, which we talked about today. I covered that aspect today, that what is the sequence that you have to take care of. Now, with the sequence, the next thing that you should think about is, okay, how do I study? What do I study? Like, I understand that, okay, I have to study SC, RCR and RC, but what do I study in SC? What do I study in CR? What do I study in prime numbers? So you have to also take into account how much content you need to study. And the content that you need to study is going to be dependent upon how you're performing as well. So in a way, it's going to be dependent on point number 1, which I talked about. So if you're not really sure how to create the study plan and you need the help to do it, don't worry. We are here to help you out with that. So I'm going to quickly share one thing that we do at GMATWhiz. As I said, we have an AI-driven engine and we provide you a personalized study plan. So I'll quickly show you how the study plan at GMATWhiz works. So basically, in the very beginning, when you onboard on the platform for the very first time, the AI will automatically ask you questions around these pointers which I shared. It will automatically ask you these questions, understand a lot of information from this. Based on this information, it will create a study plan for you right away. And I'll just like to show you how it works. So basically, you can see you have the detailed upcoming milestones. Your entire journey is planned from day 1 till the last day. You can actually see on which day you have to do what. And the best part about it is you can actually click on the start button. You can click on any activity and click on the start button and get started with this. So the study plan is actually integrated with the course itself. Okay, so you can get this study plan, and this study planning feature is free for everyone. You guys can actually plan your studies using our tool free of charge. We don't charge you anything for the study plan over here. So you can see the entire thing. You can even see the week view. So you don't want to see the entire calendar and just want to focus on the current week, no worries. We create a weekly task list for you. So you can see over here that the student is going to study for 26 hours in the week, and it clearly tells how many lessons, how many quizzes the student has to go through. And it does not just tell you how many, it even organizes all of that in the right order for you. So your job is simplified. It covers every area of quant and verbal. It includes learning, it includes quizzes and everything. You just have to click on start button. It will automatically take you to where you can start with. So you will have access to those videos and everything. You just have to start learning. And as I said, the plan is a dynamic plan. We don't just plan it on the day 1, because on day 1 we have limited information about you. The AI actually is equipped to learn more and more about you as you progress. So as you progress forward, every week the AI learns more about you and asks you next week that, okay, last week you completed this much, how much time do you want to study for this week? You can increase or decrease your time. If you're a working professional, you can change the time and actually go ahead with and tell, okay, this week I have less time, so create a smaller study plan for me. Or if you have more time this week, you can increase the study plan. So all of that will be taken into account and proper study plan will be created for you. Okay, so if you want to really create a personalized study plan free of charge for yourself, I am just gonna share the link to do that. The study plan is free. Anyone can create and get the access to it. The content that you have to access in the study plan, that is in the free trial, that is limited to only 10% of what we offer. So you can see some content that we offer in the free trial. And if you want to access the entire content, and if you want to just focus on the study plan, you can obviously upgrade your account and go ahead with it. That's obviously dependent on whether you like the course or not. But study planning you can actually do with this. So this was more about people who are initial parts of their prep, who are beginning their prep. So remember, guys, goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you are really looking at doing an MBA from a top school, it is right time to convert your goal into a plan of action. Okay, so now let's get to the main objective of the topic that was there of the webinar. Again, I wanted to make sure that I'm covering a lot of people who are just starting their prep as well, because that is a huge chunk of people around this time who just start. So now let's focus on what you need to do 60, 30, 14, 7, and 1 day before your actual GMAT. Now, this is just a quick overview, guys. By no means I'm just going to keep you on this slide. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we are going to discuss now. And then I'm going to get deeper into each of these areas that you see on your screen today. Okay, so we'll get deep into each of the areas. So just this is just a quick overview of what it is going to look like. Okay, so just 60 days before your GMAT, in the last 60 days before your GMAT, ideally what you should be focusing on is fine tuning. You should focus on working on your weak areas and improving your timing. That's going to be the most important thing that you guys need to focus your attention on. This is the most critical thing, not just practicing. This has to be organized really, really well. And I'm going to talk about it in depth, because this is something you're going to do for 30 odd days. So I'm going to talk about it a lot today. Then in the last 30 days is when you start taking mocks. Basically, this is another mistake which people do. They do not really know when to take mocks. Some people even start taking, they think that, okay, every 10, 15 days I should take mocks. I connect with people on a regular basis. And many people tell me that, okay, I have just started my prep 10 days back. I took a diagnostic when I started. And how should I go about my prep next? I'll tell them everything when we discuss, and then they say in the last day, they are sometimes ask a question that, okay, I'm planning to give another mock in 5 days from today or 10 days from today. I say, why? What is the point of taking a mock test if you're not even prepared? There's no point on doing that. So don't waste your mock test. You should start taking your mocks 30 days before your GMAT. And I'll tell you how you to do that. The focus over here should be learning the right test taking strategies. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that in depth as well. In the last 14 days, that's basically the final lap. In a sense, that's the final lap. In this case, you should focus on finalizing your test date. Ideally, I recommend this. In very rare cases, you should book the test case earlier than that. I'll talk about those cases also. But the ideal time to book your GMAT is about 14 days before it. Okay, I'll tell you why I think so and the rationale behind it. So you should focus on finalizing the test date and advanced fine-tuning. I'll tell you what I mean by advanced fine-tuning also. In the last 7 days, you should focus on revision. Okay, this is the final revision of notes and important question. So I'm going to talk about all of this now. So let's focus on the first part, which is the 60 days fine tuning. But let me tell you this, guys. This is overall, the entire picture is a generalized picture. You need to understand that this entire picture that you see over here, the 60 days fine tuning, the 30 days mocks, 14 days final lap, or 7 days revision is a generalized picture, because different people will be very different. There would be people over here who have been preparing for a long time, who have already prepared for 4 months, 6 months, or they have taken the GMAT multiple times. There will be people over here who are really like working professionals. They probably take an entire year to prepare, or they take 6-7 months to prepare. For them, probably fine tuning has to start a little earlier. There might be people over here who are full time into studying or having a little more time available with them to study. For them, probably fine tuning may not require an entire month. You can probably do fine tuning in 15 days as well. So this is what I'm going to talk about today, is a generalized thing which is going to work for majority of people, and this is something which will get you some amount of guidelines in terms of how do you go about each thing. Okay, the 60, 30, 14, and 7 are just numbers which may be different for different people. So in case you really want to discuss your personal strategy, you want to get personalized advice, you can actually connect with me over a call, because when I discuss give personalized advice to people, I actually take into account a lot of factors. Some of them include the time available with you. It also takes into account, we also need to take into account how much content have you gone through, what is your target score, what are the resources have you utilized, and also also your strengths, weaknesses, and methods that you're using. A lot of things I have to be taken into account to give a more personalized advice. So in case you're interested in a personalized discussion with me, you can actually connect with me over a call. This is a free call, by the way, so you guys can use this link, which I'm just sharing over here, to connect with me over a call. But I'm going to focus on the overall generalized advice. So let's start with the 60 days before the test, which is where you focus on fine-tuning weak areas and timing. Okay, so I have a question from Rohan. Rohan says, I was to give my GMAT in 30 days, but not time scheduled to mocks. I'm wanting to date by 15 more days. Would June 15th be a good time to apply for fall 2022? Yes, Rohan. See, most of the colleges of like for fall 2022 intake, the deadline, round one deadline is gonna be in September. For Indian colleges, it is in like IIMs, it is in like August end. So even if you take the GMAT in June mid or even July mid, you still have enough time for your applications. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to cover when exactly should you take the GMAT and all. So those things are going to be covered. So please be with me for that. But let's focus on how to fine tune weaknesses and how to improve your timing. So how should you start? So in the last 60 days, how should you start? Let's focus on that. So in the last 60 days, when you're working on your fine tuning, what I mean by fine tuning is that imagine that you have, I'm assuming with fine tuning that you have already done a lot of prep. Okay, you have already done the lot of prep. You have gone through the learning phase entirely. You know most of the things, but there are certain gaps in your understanding. Okay, I have a question from Shekhar, especially for verbal in, let's say, over 20 days, should we go with resolving solved official questions or should we practice unofficial questions to keep a taste of fresh questions? So Shekhar, that is going to be covered. Don't worry about that. Girish has a question. Again, I'm taking questions in between. Don't mind, because I'd like to interact with people. I don't want the one-sided communication to be there. So what is the last month for giving exam for fall 2022 Jan intake? So again, if I'm not sure, you have written fall as well as Jan, so I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you're meaning Jan 2022 intake, again, you have to check with the school that you're applying to. Generally, in general, the deadline, the last deadline would be somewhere around July or August. Okay, the last one, like even the latest one, unless you are a like citizen of the same country, that's a different story. But otherwise, if you're an international student, July and August is generally when the last deadline is there. So if you want to take the GMAT just before it, you can do it just before it. Okay, for fall 2022, generally the last deadline for international candidates is around January, February. There is one more deadline in March. Actually, that's technically the last one, but in reality, like for top schools, the round 3, which is March, is not the best round to apply to. Okay, again, any questions around rounds to apply to and all of that, please hold on for the Q&A part of the session. Let's first focus on this part, which is more important for us. Okay, so how should you start your fine tuning? Let's understand that. So in the fine tuning also, I've seen people doing multiple things at the same time. Again, people focus on quant as well as verbal fine tuning at the same time. I generally don't recommend that. Unless you are someone who has more than 20 hours in a week to spare, I generally don't recommend that. Because as a working profession, sometimes it is very difficult for you to manage both things at the same time. So again, if you don't want that stringent timeline to be there, even 15 hours, at least 15 hours a week you should be giving if you want to do both things parallelly. But let's still understand like how you should go about doing this. So you have to focus on one section at a time out of quant and verbal if you are a working professional with a tight schedule. Okay, and retakers should work on the weak section first. So out of quant and verbal, whichever is your weak section, you need to focus on that first. That's generally true even for first time test takers. For retakers, it is much more important. And as I said, this is a generalized advice which I'm giving. It like the personalized advice will be very different for different students, and I have to take multiple factors into account. I'm giving a generalized advice because I don't know each and every one of you, and I cannot talk about each and every one of you over this webinar. So let's understand how to focus on one section. Now you have to approach different sections differently. For example, the approach for verbal has to be different from the approach for quant. I'm specifically talking about fine tuning guys over here. So let's understand how the approach should be. So for verbal, you should be focusing on doing one module at a time. And again, this is something similar to what I discussed a little while earlier, that in verbal, you have to go module wise, and in quant, you have to go topic wise, because that's how things work over there. And when I say a module in verbal, I mean sentence correction, critical reasoning, and reading comprehension. Okay, remember this, guys. In verbal, you will take one module at a time out of these three. In quant, on the other hand, you take one topic at a time. And topics, by topics, I mean prime numbers, functions, circles, profit and loss, like this. So in quant, you have to go topic wise always. Okay. Don't go like number properties, word problems, and so on. All right. Now let's talk about how to improve verbal first. So how to fine tune verbal. Let's talk about that. And then that is, I'm sure a lot of you would be focusing, talking like worrying about that as well. Okay, so Karthik also has a question. Karthik says, I have approximately 60 days to take my GMAT. I'm still not in fine tuning phase. What's your advice to get 700 plus score considering the time left? So Karthik, again, if you're not in fine tuning phase, try to get into the fine tuning phase sooner. And as I said, this is generalized advice. I'm not saying that everyone requires to start their fine tuning 60 days before. There are students of mine to whom I recommend to start their fine tuning just 30 days before the GMAT or 45 days before the GMAT also. Okay, so as I said, this is generalized advice. Whenever you're starting your fine tuning, you should focus on this. But don't rush to start the fine tuning, because if you're not done with the learning phase and you start the fine tuning too soon, then it won't work out for you. You will have more gaps. You'll end up wasting the time that you have saved in learning. Actually, you will end up wasting more time than that in the fine tuning itself. So give everything its due time. Okay, and if you want to discuss your case individually with me, you are more than welcome to schedule a call one-on-one with me after the webinar is over. You can click on the link which I provided a little while earlier. Okay, so how to improve your verbal score? So first thing that you do is you take individual module-wise tests. Take one test for sentence correction, one for critical reasoning, one for reading comprehension. Okay, and in each of these tests, take about 25-30 questions. Ideally, these questions should be fresh questions. This question should not have been done by you earlier. Okay, and this is something which is very critical. So take these tests and identify your scores and break down these three modules, SC, CR, and RC, in two groups. First group is where your score is less than 70 percentile. Again, I'm talking about percentile, not necessarily accuracy. For some of you, percentile will be difficult to calculate. If you're a GMATWhiz student, we give you percentile of every quiz. Like in every quiz, you get a percentile score based on the AI, which uses a lot of analytics to understand what the percentile is. But if you're not having any access to such a tool, what you can do is then you can keep a benchmark of about 80% accuracy. Okay, again, this is not going to be as accurate as percentile, but at least it will give you a pretty decent idea. So in group one will be your weak group, where your accuracy is less than 80%. Group two is your strong group, where your accuracy is greater than 80%. Okay, ideally you should look at percentile, but yeah, this is another way of looking at it. So let's take an example. So let's assume that you take this test, and these are the scores that you end up getting: 80, 30, and 50 in SC, CR, and RC individually. So obviously, your first priority over here should be to work on your weak areas. Your weak areas being CR and RC, and SC is clearly your strong area. So the sequence will be different for you. If you remember in the beginning, I was talking about people who are just starting. For them, doing SC first makes more sense. But if you are in the fine-tuning phase, you have to focus on working on your weak areas first, then your strong areas. Okay. So focus, just give me 1 minute. In the meantime, just I want you to ponder over this, get this in, like, just let this thought sink in overall. All right. So you have to identify the strong and weak areas first. And if this is the case, then obviously you have to work on CRM, RC first. That should be your priority. So this is the order in which you will work on fine-tuning your verbal skills. Okay. Now let's go a step further. Now, how to tackle the weak areas? What you should do for your weak areas? So in the weak areas, what you need to do is, from the sectional test that you took, and if you remember, I said about 25-30 questions. So approximately these many questions you should take in that sectional test. From this same sectional test, you take out the list of topics in which your score is less than 60%. What I mean by topics, for example, in sentence corrections, topics would be modifiers, tenses, parallelism, and so on. In critical reasoning, on the other hand, the topics would be assumption, inference, weaken, boldface, etc. So identify topics in which your score is less than 60%. And what you need to do is work on these topics first, because if one module is in a weak area, It basically, what does it mean? It basically means your score is less than 80%. And why your score is less than 80%? Because you might have some conceptual gaps over there. You may not have understood all the concepts, or you may not remember those concepts as clearly. So if you just go and practice questions, that's not going to help you. So first you need to filter these topics where your score is poor and work on revising those topics right away. Revise those concepts right away. First revise, and then practice a few questions, maybe 5 questions or 10 questions on that specific area to solidify your understanding of those concepts. And when you're practicing these questions, you can take a good mix of easy and medium questions. Don't worry about hard questions right away, because the objective right now should be to focus on solidifying your conceptual understanding for this moment part. Okay, so this part is clear to all of you? Quick yes no over here. Is this part clear to all of you? Any doubts on this screen, guys? Quick yes no. If you don't have any doubts, if it is clear, you can just say yes. If you have a question, you can post a question over here in the comments. Let's quickly see. Just want to make sure all of you are clear with this part. Okay. I don't see a yes or a no, so I'm not really sure whether it is clear to you or not. Okay, Girish says yes. I don't see any comment. Okay, no worries. In the interest of time, let's move forward. George says it is clear. Great. Thank you so much. So as I said, focus on working on the weak concepts first. Solidify your conceptual understanding. And after you solidify your conceptual understanding, you have to focus on learning application of concepts also. Okay, application of concepts also. This is going to be a very, very important part, guys. I'm going to talk about application of concepts as well in a short while, so don't worry about that. So remember, in your weak areas, you have to do 2 things. First thing, cover conceptual gaps. Work on your conceptual gaps, which I talked about over here, how to do it. Identify topics with less than 60% score. Work on those concepts, revise those concepts first, and then do about 5 to 10 questions on these, which are medium and hard, like easy and medium. Basically, don't do hard questions as of now. The second thing that you need to do in your weak area after conceptual gap is working on application. Okay, working on application of concepts. So I'll talk about application of concepts alongside the work on strong area, because application of concept is something. If there is something in your strong area, it means that your conceptual knowledge is perfect. You are only struggling with application. Okay, so in the strong areas, you need to work only on application. So remember, in the weak area, this is how you work on the concept gap I have told you. For the application part, it is going to be common with your strong area. You have to follow a similar approach, which I'm going to talk about now. So let's look at how to work on the application part. Okay, so you have to first learn the right approach and then master the approach. These are 2 things that you have to do. Learn the right method and master it. Now, why am I talking about this? Because especially in verbal, people do not know the right approach. They focus on mostly shortcuts while solving questions. They do not learn the right methods, and that's why most people struggle. I struggled for a long time for my verbal because I was focusing on shortcuts, like skimming through the passage and just looking at the splits and just looking at grammar aspect of sentence correction. I was not really focusing on the right methods. So remember, you have to first take out shortcuts completely from the prep and focus on the right approach. Learn that and master it. Let's talk about what is the meaning. What do I mean by right approach? So just to give you an idea, in critical reasoning, there are 3 steps that you should follow in order to solve a question. The step 1 is analyzing the question stem. You have to understand each and every part of the question stem. Okay, in the sense that you have to clearly understand the the conclusion, and which aspects of the argument impact the conclusion. Okay, again, I cannot talk about the entire CR thing today, but I'm sharing some session recordings, a link to webinar series that we conducted, where we have covered each and every strategy for critical reasoning, SCA and RCA and all of that. So in case you're interested in knowing about these approaches, you can actually go through this session recordings. That will get you a pretty good idea. Okay, but in general, in CR, your focus should be on these 3 steps. First, understand the stem really well. What is the conclusion? What matters for the conclusion and what does not matter? We also call it scope analysis. Then you should do pre-thinking that, okay, what is missing in the scope? What is basically the gap which is there? And then you should focus on answer choice elimination. Most of the people don't do any of these 2. they, instead of analyzing the question stem, they read the question stem. Okay, and sometimes they spend time on pre-thinking. But if you don't analyze the question stem and then spend time on pre-thinking, you can never get pre-thinking. You will never be able to do this. So for most people, it's about reading the stem and then answer choice elimination, which is not the right thing. This is a shortcut. You're missing out on two things. You're missing out on analysis and pre-thinking. You have to do both of them. So remember, you have to learn the right approach. Similarly, in sentence correction, you have to focus on understanding the intended meaning first. Many people don't do that. They will just read the sentence to see if something catches their ear, if something sounds wrong to them. Don't do that. Focus on understanding the intended meaning first. And as you do that, if you know the grammar rules from a meaning perspective, you'll be able to eliminate choices right away. You'll be able to identify some errors and you'll be able to eliminate choices. And then you should evaluate remaining choices from meaning perspective. Okay, Shekhar, I'm happy to know that you found this recording helpful. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to learn a lot of things from these session recordings, which I just shared a little while earlier. So first thing is you should know and learn the right methods. That's the first thing. Then after learning, you have to master it. So let's talk about how to master it. Okay, so basically what you have to do is, again, I'm a little more on learning the right approach as well, and then I'm going to talk about the master part as well. So in order to learn, so in this slide I just talked about what is the right approach, but how to learn it. First, you have to understand the method. So you can understand the method by going through the session recordings, which I've shared a little while earlier. Then you should solve 15 questions from that particular module. For example, if it is sentence correction, you solve 15 questions, taking one question at a time, not more than one question, just one question at a time. Okay, and after that, when you have solved that one question, you have to review the explanation and avoid deviations from method. Because understand it this way, guys, just knowing the method is not going to help you. You have to learn each and every step. If you see, all these methods have multiple steps involved in it. You might not be doing one of the steps right. If you don't do one of the steps right, you will struggle with the next step. So it's very important that you review the explanation and identify deviations. See what is the method that you are following. And that's why I'm talking about one question at a time. I did not say solve 15 questions. I clearly said solve 15 questions one at a time. Because when you're saying solving just one question, how you approached it, what was the first thing that you did, what was the second thing that you did, is very fresh in your mind. Now, when you look at the solution, you can actually map your step one with the solution step one and see what is the deviation. Then you can match step two of yours with the solution step two, and you can match the deviation and so on. And this is the way to learn, guys. Always remember, you need to review solutions very closely. You should focus always on quality rather than quantity. Don't focus on doing 50 questions or 100 questions in a day or 20 questions in a day. Focus rather on quality of what you're learning. Now, one challenge that I hear from students that they face is that, okay, how do I get a solution in a methodical way? That's a big challenge. At least when I was a student, I did not get a lot of solutions which were very methodical. In most of the solutions which I used to get, I'm talking about verbal specifically, most of the solutions only told me why A is wrong, B is wrong, C is right, D is wrong, and E is wrong. That's what the solution was about. There was no step-by-step method of analyzing the question stem and all of those things that I talked about. So if that is the problem, then don't worry, we have a solution for you. At GMATWhiz, every solution that you will have will follow a methodical approach. And if you're a GMATWhiz student, you already have access to it. If you're not a GMATWhiz student, you can probably look at our platform. This will help you. And the reason why this is there is because we spend twice the time that we spend on creating a question to actually write the solutions down. We detail out the solutions so that our students are able to avoid the deviations which are there. In fact, we have created specific files for learning the approach called Concept Booster. It's a very integral part of our course. And I would recommend you guys, even if you're not using GMATWhiz, to focus on something similar as a process, okay? This is a process that you should follow. And this is a very scientific way of learning. So what we do in this Concept Booster is we give you one question at a time to solve, which is followed by a proper solution. Obviously, you have to put in the effort to analyze it. You can choose GMATWhiz, and you can choose not to read the solutions. Then probably it's not going to help at all. So what you need to do is, after the solution question, you have to analyze the solution and figure out the gaps in your application. Now, another good thing about the concept booster is each question is handpicked in the concept booster and it covers a different aspect. So, for example, if you're doing questions from verb tenses, each and every question of concept booster will test a different aspect of verb tenses. So we have done thorough research before creating the concept boosters to identify what are the various error types that are tested on GMAT for every topic. Okay, and in fact, this concept boosters are not there in verbal; it is there in Quant also. So we have looked at all error types, and in the concept booster, you'll have one question of each error type minimum. Okay, so that's a very scientific method. So you're not taken off guard on the day of the test. You would always be prepared for the kind of questions that will come your way. So this is a snapshot from our course. Again, you can see that this is the prime numbers topic which I'm talking about over here. You can see there is this concept booster, there is the second concept booster which is there. So what we do is we tell you, okay, first learn less concepts through video lectures, then learn how to apply, basically learn the method through concept booster, and then practice. And over here, you can just see one practice quiz, but it's not just one practice quiz. This is an AI-driven platform, as I said. Based on your performance over here, there might be more quizzes that can be added by the AI. So basically, the AI identifies whether you need to do more questions or not, and I adds more quizzes for you. And it's not just the end of it. You have our quizzing platform called Quizard, where you can practice more questions also as you wish to. Okay, so this is very, very important. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, how to master the application, how to master the methods. Now, first step, as I said, was to understand and learn the methods. Now, when you have learned the methods, then what you should do is you should practice 30, 40 questions using the approach. Now, this part is something which is important for your timing. See, when you're learning the method, at that point of time, you should not focus on timing. For example, you should not try and do the questions in 2 minutes itself or 1.5 minutes itself, because at that point of time, you're learning the method. And whenever you learn something new, it takes you some bit of a time to get used to it. So at this moment, when you're learning the method, don't worry about timing. Once you have learned the method, you should practice 30, 40 questions. And this time you can take quizzes of 10 questions each. Like you can take 3 to 4 quizzes and now focus on timing. Now, how you focus on timing is, let's say, after you learn the method, for example, in a particular area, let's say in sentence correction, you saw that you are taking 2.5 minutes to solve each question. So how you focus on timing over here is that in the first 10 question quiz, you give yourself 2.25 minutes and see whether you're able to comfortably complete it or not. If you're able to complete it, you can then in the next quiz, you can reduce this to 2 minutes, 15 seconds maybe, okay? If you're not comfortable with 2 minutes, 25 seconds, next one should be 2 minutes, 25 seconds only, okay? Sorry, my bad. I meant 2.25 minutes, not 2 minutes, 25 seconds. So imagine this is 2 minutes, 15 seconds actually, okay? So if you're comfortable with 2 minutes, 15 seconds, next time around you can keep 2 minutes. And if you're comfortable with 2 minutes, next time around you can keep 1:45. So try to reduce your timing gradually through this practicing phase. Okay, so mastering the approach basically means now you have learned the approach. Now you're using this approach multiple times and trying to reduce your timing by focusing on any waste in the process. And that's how you should do. Okay, and this will actually lead you to, as I said, automatically reduction in timing. And remember, even at this stage, reviewing the solutions is very, very important, because when you review the solutions, you don't even just look at the deviations in the approach, you are even able to see where you are going in the wrong direction. Because whenever you take extra time because sometimes you go in the wrong direction. So it is important that you actually focus on reviewing the solutions even now. All right. Hope this is clear to all of you guys. I would like to know if all of you are clear about this learning and mastering approach part. Let's see some quick yes, no's. Okay, I will in the meantime, I'll take Peter's question. So Peter says, I have the GMAT on Sunday, need at least 680, any advice? I work full time and have studied about 60, 70 hours so far. So Peter, again, very difficult for me to give you advice just based on your target score. It is important also for us to understand where you are with respect to your current performance. So if you have taken a mock test, then probably that is something I also need to take into account to tell you what to do. But honestly speaking, if the exam is on Sunday, just 2 days or 3 days from today, I would rather recommend you to revise a few things and focus on like relaxing, maybe taking of 1 or 2 mock tests. That's it. Okay, so I have a question from Shivam. So Shivam says, will doing the same question that I already have done from the resource I have help, as I already know answers to it now? If not, where can I look for extra resources? So Shivam, see, when you are actually learning the approach, probably I won't recommend you to do the same questions again, because somehow you'll have a bias towards those questions. You'll probably remember a good part of it. So doing the same one will not help you as much. If you still want to do the same questions, at least do 70% of the questions which are new. Now, with respect to where you can find extra questions, you can look at official guides, advanced official guides. There are a good number of questions on GMAT Club as well. Filter for official guide questions. Manhattan questions are also pretty good. Veritas questions are also pretty good. You can look at GMATWhiz questions also. They may not be available on GMAT Club, but they are definitely available on our course platform. You can check that out. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Shiva. So good. I'm happy that all of you are clear with this. So let's talk about fine-tuning quant. Now, how do you fine-tune your quant? So first thing is identify areas of improvement in quant. How do you identify areas of improvement? Take 30 question quizzes for each module. Again, same thing as verbal. You're doing first baselining. You baseline things first, you understand where the problems are, and then proceed from there. So first thing is that baseline yourself. Okay, I have a question from Harshal. So let's take it up as well. I do all the questions for a particular topic. I get used to it and remember it well. But next time, after a week or two, when same topic comes in front of me, I kind of feel lost. So Harshal, if that is happening with you, it's probably because you are not using a consistent method to solve questions of that type. Generally, if you're not following the right method, and you're just focusing on questions of a particular type, what happens is you're looking for those errors and you're able to identify those errors and you're getting them right. But later on, when you don't know like which topic is being tested, you end up making a mistake because you're not following the method correctly. But if you're following the right method, you'll be able to spot the errors. Now, if your question is the other way around, like for example, you're saying that it's not about knowing the topic, it's just about freshness. I have that covered. I have that covered as part of revision. So don't worry about that. Okay, so first thing that you do is you take 30 questions quizzes for all of these areas individually, and then you categorize the topics, individual topics. When I say topics, I mean prime numbers, divisibility, remainders, circles, etc. Remember, in quant, you have to go topic wise. So identify those topics and break them down into 2 parts. Okay, first category is if your score is less than 60% in one category, it is because of your concept gaps. If your score is between 60 and 85%, again, I'm talking about score over here, which is accuracy approximately 60 to 85 basically means you have application gaps in that. Now, if you're a GMATWhiz student, this data is automatically captured. You don't have to worry about that, but you have to identify the concept gaps and application gaps overall. Now, if you have concept gaps in something, it has to be tackled differently. For topics where you have concept gaps, you need to first revise those concepts and learn the formulas that exist around it properly. First step is that. Second step is you have to learn how to solve questions. You have to also learn how to solve questions because probably the method also is not as great over there. And then you have to practice about 15 to 20 questions on that particular area. However, if you have application gaps, then there's no need for revising the concepts as such. You need to just improve your method of solving questions. So learn how to solve questions methodically. You might be using a certain method, so please improve the method overall. Learn a better method of solving the questions. And then practice 10 to 15 questions on that area and move forward. So this is how your quant performance should be done. And as I said, you should not go through all the concept gaps first and application gaps then, not like that. What you need to do is map which topics are having concept gaps and application gaps. Okay, so for example, let's say in this list, you have to take this list again. If in this list, let's say this is an area where you have concept gaps. This is an area where you have application gaps. In these areas, you have concept gaps. In these areas, you have application gaps. Over here also you have application gaps. Here you have concept gaps. So it's not like you are going to work on this first, all the concept gaps first. No, you have to focus on learning in the same order, guys, in the same order. So if you have concept gaps on fractions and decimals, you'll review the concepts of fractions and decimals first, then learn the method and practice 15 to 20 questions. Then you will move to estimation and rounding, where you don't need to learn the you don't need to revise the concepts. You just need to improve your methods and do 15 questions, 10 to 15 questions on it. So you have to follow this particular sequence in Quant. Remember that, guys. Okay. So how can GMATWhiz help you? In case you don't want to put in all this effort yourself and focus on, okay, where I have concept gap or application gaps, you can actually use our platform where we take diagnostic quizzes from time to time automatically. This is again done by AI. You don't have to worry about this. From on basis of your diagnostic quizzes, the AI will identify. We call the AI as Viz. So the Viz will identify the concepts that you already know. For the concepts that you already know, it will take it out of the picture altogether. You don't have to go through the video lessons for them. You will only need to go through the concepts that you're weak in, and then it will take you to the concept booster lessons where you will actually focus on the application part. Okay, so this is how you should work on your overall quant fine tuning. All right, guys. So this is the regime that you have to follow for about 30 days, where you fine tune all the areas and improve your timing. So remember, this two things are very important. You do not improve your timing by taking mock tests. Many people think that, okay, if I take more mock tests, that will help me improve timing. No, guys. When you reach the mock phase, when you are coming to this particular part, till this time, your weak areas should be as minimal as possible. Your timing should be as close to the right timing as possible. If that is not the case, do not start taking mocks. It is not the right thing to do, because you cannot just reduce time on the day of the mock by just telling yourself that, okay, today I'm going to solve a SC question within 1 minute 50 seconds, when in general you solve SC question in 2.5 minutes. You cannot do that on the mock directly. And if you try doing that on the mock, your scores will fluctuate. And then you will think, okay, why is my score fluctuating? I prepared so long, I have done so much of the prep, but why am I still not there? So please don't do that. Before coming to this stage, remember, guys, I'm telling you once again, your timing should be good. Your weak area should be as minimal as possible. If that's not the case, you should work on fine tuning much more than this. And as I said, this is more of a generalized approach that I'm telling you. Okay. So what should be your mock strategy? First thing, you should learn how to pace yourself during the test. Pacing is very critical, guys. So make sure that you're learning how to pace yourself during the test. And I have covered like that in one of my webinars previously. So I have covered a detailed webinar on timing. So just let me actually get you the link of that. So I'm just sharing the link of that webinar. This is the test taking strategy. Again, you have to understand how the algorithm works, because if you're not learning how the mock should be taken, then you will be wasting those mock tests. You should first know how GMAT algorithm works. What is the right test taking strategy? And then you should start taking mocks, because if you don't do that, then you'll not be able to apply those learnings for yourself. And remember, there are multiple strategies that are suggested. For example, there's a strategy for sequence. Okay, that do you start with verbal or do you start with quant? So you should try applying those strategies in the mocks as well to see which sequence works for you. Because the objective of taking a mock test is to ensure that on the day of the test, you're just doing that. The mock is to simulate the test taking environment. So make sure you know about the strategies beforehand. So I'm not going to talk about the strategies in depth. I'll cover a little bit of it in the webinar today. But I want you to learn more. If you want to learn more about the strategy, you can watch this webinar recording. It's a detailed 1.5 hour webinar on just the test taking strategy bit. The second thing that you should do is, apart from learning about the strategies, is you should take about one mock test every 3 or 4 days. This is the last 30 days that I'm talking about, guys. One mock test every 3-4 days is fine. Don't just randomly go and take one mock test every day or every other day. Don't be under the impression that the more mocks you do, the better you are prepared for the GMAT or you're closely simulating it. Don't do that, guys. Please take only one mock every 3 or 4 days and focus on analysis. Because if you are focusing on doing one mock every day or one mock every 2 days, that's too much. Then your focus shifts away from analysis. Focus on doing the analysis better. I generally tell this as a rule of thumb that in a mock test, if you're spending 3 hours, minimum time spent on analysis should be about 4 hours or 5 hours. Minimum time. You should look at all aspects. You should look at all questions. Ideally, you should solve all the questions once. and actually check your analysis, check the solutions, see exactly how you approached it and how it was approached in the question. Learn from every question that you solve. Second thing, see how you timed yourself. Take opinion from other people. Again, if you're a GMATWhiz student and if you take the complete quant and verbal package, you will have a mentor who is assigned to you. So connect with your mentor. Speak to your mentor about the mock that you have taken. Get your mock analyzed. Understand from them whether you are doing it right or not. Come prepared, have some data with you, and then help, like, share that with the mentor and get some input from it. But make sure you focus on analysis, because if you analyze the mock, you learn from it and you improve your score. Now there's one more mistake which a lot of people do. When someone tells them, okay, you have to take one mock every 3 or 4 days, they blindly follow that. That's not how you work on it. Understand it this way: if your score is far away from your target score on the mock test, for example, let's say you are someone who is targeting a 720 on GMAT, okay, and in one mock test you end up getting anything around 660 or 670. There's a gap of about 50-60 points over here in the actual score that you are targeting and the current score that you have. Now in this case, if you take another mock after 3 or 4 days, miraculously your score is not going to increase, right? Your score is not going to go up miraculously. You have to understand that if your score is over here and the gap is about 50-60 points, it means the fine tuning is still not done well. You have to focus on improving on your weak areas. So then again, go back to fine tuning. Okay, focus on fine tuning better. It's possible that when you are doing the fine tuning, you have missed out on something. Take experts' advice in order to improve there, but make sure that you improve the areas, because this 50-60 points gap cannot be just improved on another mock. And in such a case, if you're working on fine tuning, decrease the frequency of mock tests. So what I'm saying is, if you end up getting a 660, 670, and your target is, let's say, 720, instead of taking the next mock after 3 days, you should take the next mock after 7 days or 10 days. In the 7 and 10 days, you should focus on fine tuning. Okay. Now in the next mock, if you get a score of, let's say, 700 or even a 690, then you can take the next mock in 3 or 4 days. That is fine. Okay. But don't just continue taking every mock in 3 to 4 days. I hope this is also clear to you guys. Very important part of the mock taking strategy. I hope this is clear to you guys. Let's quickly see some responses. I hope this is clear. Any queries, any doubts on this? Any queries, any doubts on this part, guys? Okay, great. Great, guys. Happy to know that all of you have. Thank you, Shivam, Girish, Shekhar, and Firoza. Rohan is saying, please refer some mocks, links to get mocks. So Rohan, there are 2 free mocks available on official GMAT website, which is www.mba.com. You can go there and take 2 free mocks. There are 4 paid mocks which are there, and you have free mocks, 1 free mock on Manhattan, 1 on Veritas, 1 on GMATWhiz. So you can try this mocks out. This will help you. If you want to take paid mocks, Manhattan offers it, Veritas offers it, we offer it as well. So you can look at these websites for the mock test. Okay, so this is how you should go about mock tests. Now let's, as I said, I'm not going to discuss in depth about the test taking or timing strategy, but I'm going to give you an overview. If you want to go through it in depth, you can watch this webinar recording, which is on test taking strategy. You can watch this out at your end. It's a very detailed webinar, but I want to just cover a little bit about the strategy so that you know what to do in these 30 days, what kind of things you need to focus on. So in verbal, if you're targeting a score of up to 42, okay, so I have a question from Girish. Girish says, how many mocks one should give on an average? So again, Girish, it depends on you. So if you are actually doing everything right, even like 6, 7 mocks are more than enough, in my opinion. If you're not doing things right, even 15, 20 mocks may not be enough. So 6 to 7 mocks is generally the right number. Okay, I have a question from George as well. George says, in regards to selecting 20-30 questions per topic on fine-tuning, if we are looking for 700 scores, should we take 700 plus only questions? George, I won't say that. I would say if you're looking at 700 plus, you should take 700 and 650 level questions also. So medium and hard questions, those 2 levels you can take. But good question. That's something I did not cover, I guess. But yeah, thank you for asking. This should help other people also. So verbal score, if your target is about up to 42, then your test taking strategy should be something like this. You should focus on the first 27 questions. They matter the most. In GMAT, it is the last quarter in verbal. It does not matter as much as the first three. I'm not saying it does not matter. The last quarter does not matter at all. I'm saying it does not matter as much as the first three. So focus on the first three quarters, as in the first 27 questions mostly. Give what I mean by focusing on the first 27 questions mostly is give these questions their due time as required. I'm not saying give the extra time. I'm just saying don't rush through them to save time for the last quarter. Focus more on the first 27. Give it the due time. Do not spend extra time. I don't mean to say that just by solving, giving extra time, you'll get a question right. Okay. And if you are under time pressure, then in the last quarter, if you don't have enough time to solve everything, solve only 50% questions. What I mean by solve only 50% questions is not that you only solve 50% and you leave the rest unattempted. Never leave anything unattempted on GMAT. This is something we always cover. Don't make consecutive mistakes. They are penalized very heavily. You should not make consecutive mistakes. You should never leave questions unattempted. It is even penalized more heavily than marking something incorrect. So complete the test. Keep last 30 seconds for that. Okay, for marking things randomly if required, and try the strategies on a few mocks beforehand. And I'm not meaning to say that just giving more time on the first 27 questions will solve the problem. All I'm saying is that you have to give due time. So if you're taking a lot of extra time, you have to again go back to your fine-tuning phase and improve your timing first. Okay, remember that. Identify the core reason why you're taking extra time to solve questions, and then you work on that as a problem. You should not just think that, okay, I will give more time on 27 questions and I'll get through it. No, just giving more time does not solve the problem. If you're taking more time, your accuracy should also be suffering because of that. So please make sure you're working on that in the fine-tuning phase. So overall, how you should pace yourself. Now, this is a very critical part. I've seen many people debating and many people actually telling me, asking me, okay, Piyush, I read this article on the net which says, okay, let's say in like verbal, you have 36 questions, 65 minutes. So I've seen this article saying that when you complete the 18th question, you should have 32 minutes or 33 minutes left on the clock. When you have completed the first 9 questions, you should have this much time available on the clock. So what these people generally suggest, many people generally suggest, is that you should linearly time yourself. The timing should be linear throughout the test. But if you really understand GMAT adaptive algorithm, you will actually understand the flaw in this entire argument. The flaw with this approach of linearly timing yourself is that in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, the average difficulty of the question is not going to be the same. Since GMAT is an adaptive test, the difficulty level changes from one quarter to another based on your performance. So if you're targeting a 700 plus, that means your trajectory of the difficulty level should be increasing. What it also means is that if your trajectory of the difficulty level is increased, your timing should also vary, because you obviously will not take as much time to solve an easy question as you would require to solve a hard question. And that's why I'm telling you the baseline timings for each area. And what I'm assuming is you're targeting a 700, you are moving in the right direction. In verbal, you're targeting a V40 plus, or you're moving in the right direction. Then in the first quarter, you will get easy to medium questions only. And if you're getting easy to medium questions in verbal, your timing should be in the vicinity of 1 minute 40 seconds for the first quarter per question, I'm saying. In the second quarter, if you're moving in the right direction, you will be getting medium to medium hard questions. So there your timing should be about 2 minutes. In the third quarter, the questions will get super tough if you're doing it right. In the third quarter, that's why your timing should be about 2 minutes 20 seconds on an average. In the fourth quarter also, you'll get hard questions. But obviously, if you're giving this time in this manner, for the last quarter, you'll not have enough time left. You'll probably have 1 minute 20 seconds per question. Okay, that doesn't mean that you will be trying to solve every question in 1 minute 20 seconds. Not really. What I recommend over here is, instead, this is the average time available with you. You still give 2 minute 20 seconds or 25 seconds or maybe 30 seconds on each question that you solve, and only do selective questions. Just the other ones, just mark them randomly. Okay, so this is the timelines. This is the timing that you should aim for verbal. And the baseline time for each section should be like this. For SC, the baseline time should be about 3 minutes. 1 minute 30 seconds. For CR, it should be about 2 minutes. For RC, it should be about 1 minute 50 seconds. Okay, so this is your baseline time, and obviously I'm talking about baseline time for SC. So obviously in SC 1 minute 30 seconds is for medium questions. For easy question you'll take probably a minute 10 seconds. For hard questions you might take 1 minute 40 or 1 minute 50 seconds as well. So this is the baseline time which I'm talking about, and obviously you have to also adjust the timing based on your strong and weak areas. These are generalized suggestions. Okay, these are obviously not same for every student. For your strong area, you should adjust the time downwards by 20 seconds, up to 20 seconds, not necessarily exactly 20 seconds. For me, for example, I was very good at SC. I scored a 94 percentile in sentence correction on GMAT, and I took about 1 minute 15 seconds to answer each SC question. So obviously that's my strong area. And for your weak area, you need to adjust your time upwards by 20 seconds. For example, in CR, on the other hand, I took about 2 minute 10 seconds or something, if I remember correctly. So again, you have to make these adjustments based on what is your strong and what is your weak area as well. These things have to be done. And remember, when you're practicing, you have to devote the right amount of time for each difficulty level. I come across students who say, okay, Piyush, I'm targeting to solve every SC question in 1 minute 30 seconds, but I'm not able to do so. And when I ask them, okay, what was the average difficulty of the test? They say that, okay, I took only 700 level questions. I say that's the wrong approach. If you're targeting 700 level questions on SC, you need to give yourself 1 minute 50 seconds on an average. You cannot do that. Okay, so that is something you have to understand. You have to practice keeping this average difficulty level in mind as well. So I have a question from Shivam. Shivam says, for a target of verbal 42, out of 36 questions, approximately how many questions should we get correct to have a sense of confidence as the test progresses? So again, Shivam, you probably not even know when you get something right or wrong. But yeah, if you're that confident about when you're marking things, then I would say about 6 questions is what you can get right or wrong and get a 42. But remember, GMAT, it does not work. Accuracy is not the only thing that works on GMAT. Please understand that. And Shekhar, thanks for chiming in and pointing this out. But I can like in my recording, which I shared a little while earlier of the test taking strategy, I cover about a girl rather, who scored a verbal 34. I scored a verbal 41. I made 7 mistakes in the test. Okay, and this girl just made 5 mistakes in the test. Can you imagine that? She actually made 2 mistakes less than I did, and she still had 34 only. So it depends also on where you make the mistakes, Shivam. But if you are making the mistakes at the right places, probably 6 mistakes is what you can afford to make to get a 42. Okay, but at the right places, not on the wrong places. Ehsanul Kabir has a question. What is the most effective way to do SC questions? So for SC, Ehsanul, I would recommend you to focus on the meaning-based approach. I'm gonna share the recordings of one of the webinar series that we conducted. In this, we have covered webinars on sentence correction. So you can actually go through these webinars to understand that. Okay. Great, guys. Let's talk about the timing strategy for Quant very quickly now. So what about Quant? So in Quant, if you're targeting something around 47 plus, this is what you need to do. You need to get the first 15 questions right. Don't try to save time in the first 15 questions is what I'm trying to say. Try to have as high accuracy as possible in the first 15. It's going to be very, very critical for you. So the more accuracy you have in the first 15, the better your score is going to be. Again, why? If you want to ask me, just watch the recording which I shared a little while earlier on testing strategy. There I am sharing many ESR, and I'm actually telling you guys why I recommend so. Try to maintain a decent accuracy in the third quarter, as close to good, like high accuracy as possible. Try to maintain a very decent accuracy overall. And if you fall short on time, solve questions selectively as late as possible. Ideally in the fourth quarter, but if you have to do it in the third quarter, also do that. But first 15, no compromise on that at all. Should be pitch perfect, okay, as close as possible. And these things remain the same. These 3 tips remain the same as for verbal. So in Quant, one mistake which people do many a times is they do not study one topic at all. They will completely leave out permutation, combination, so coordinate geometry. Again, depending on what your strength or weakness is, they do this mistake all the time. Don't do that, guys, because you never know which question from which topic is going to come in the first 15. You never have an idea about that. And if you have to get the first 15 right, you have to cover every topic. And don't worry about all difficulty levels. At least build the ability to get easy and medium questions right from your weak areas. Again, from your strong areas, you'll even focus on hard questions. But if something is in a weak area, at least build the capability that you can get the easy and medium ones right. And trust me, getting the easy and medium ones right do not require a lot of effort. Like you can build the right skills, you can cover all the question types and get there. And if you really want to build the right skills and cover all question types, one way to do that is to check out GMATWhiz. Again, in the GMATWhiz platform, we focus on, as I said in the concept booster, we cover all varieties of questions that can come your way on GMAT. Okay, so this will help you significantly to improve. Now, what should be the timing for the quant section? How you should time yourself? So basically, in the 4 quarters, this is how you should time yourself. Again, I'm giving you a rough estimate of how it should be. This should also not be linear. Remember, guys, linear timing does not work on GMAT. Should not be followed. So this is how you should time yourself, average in each quarter. And remember, this is something you have to practice when you are like in the fine tuning phase itself. Devote right amount of time for each difficulty level. Don't be under the impression that you will be solving every question under 2 minutes. This does not happen. I scored a quant 50 on GMAT. I am a 99.9 percentile on CAT quant, which is supposedly much more difficult. But even if you give me a 700 plus level question today, again, depending on which topic it is from, I might take 3 minutes to solve a question. I might take 2 minutes for some of them. So it depends also on your weakness and strength. But in general, on hard questions, you'll be taking more than 2 minutes also. This is something which will happen naturally. So give yourself time to do that. Don't be don't over optimize things. Remember that. Okay, and identify your comfort areas and be selective right from quarter 3 if you spend a lot more time on questions from your uncomfortable area. What I'm trying to say here is, when I was taking the test, I knew that as a student I do not fare well in geometry questions, especially the ones which are on triangles and circles. Those are not my forte. So in the first 15 questions, I did not do any compromise. But from the 3rd quarter onwards, whenever I saw a triangles question, okay, I saw a triangles question, I gave it a try. At least I gave it a try. I tried it for 2 minutes. If after 2 minutes I was not sure how I'm gonna approach it, how I'm gonna do it, I selected an answer, made a guess, moved forward. Now I spent 2 minutes because I had enough time to spend those 2 minutes. If probably you don't have that much time left, then you have to be selective even more earlier than that. I'm not saying skip the question randomly or blindly. At least give it a shot. And after some point of time, take a call. Okay, do that for your uncomfortable areas. Very important tip. Thing, don't take simple questions too lightly. Many a times I have seen students doing this. Even today I was talking to one person who scored a Quant 38 recently in one of the tests. She was telling me that I felt that I made a lot of silly mistakes in the beginning itself, and when I was moving forward, that continuously played on my mind because I probably took the questions too lightly. So remember, again, I'm not showing you ESRs here, but I can actually show you some ESRs which will tell you how heavily GMAT penalizes you if you make mistakes in the beginning of the test. So make sure you're not taking easy questions lightly, especially the DS questions. Go through them properly. I'm not saying do give a lot of extra time. All I'm saying is go through them properly, how you should solve it. Give them the right amount of time, not extra, not less. Okay? And in case you know 2 methods to solve a question, then probably you can use those 2 methods to just clarify, like verify the answer of for the medium questions and the easy ones overall. Okay, so this is the testing strategy for quant. Now let's talk about what do you do 14 days before the test. So we are coming close to your GMAT test date. Okay, so what do you do 14 days before your GMAT test date? Now here you have to do 2 things. First, finalize the test date and focus on advanced fine tuning. So let's understand when to book the date. Many people ask me, when should I book the date? So what I generally recommend people is, and again, this is a generalized advice, guys. Why I generally recommend people to do is, you should be booking the date when in 2 consecutive mock tests, focus on this, 2 consecutive mock tests, your score is 20 points more than your target score. So if your target score is 720, if in 2 consecutive mocks, your score is 740 or more, then you should be confident to go ahead and book the date. Because remember, in general, in the mocks, you may not have that much anxiety, but on the test day, you'll be a little anxious. So you have to discount for that 20 points. Okay. Sanul has a question. How many questions can you leave incomplete in both question sections if you're running out of time? If I can't complete the last 5 in verbal, how much will my score drop? So honestly speaking, how many can you leave incomplete is like you can leave everything incomplete, but how much should you leave incomplete? The answer is 0. keep 30 seconds or 1 minute extra in the end just to mark everything completely. Because if you are leaving 5 questions or even 2 questions, your score will drop much more significantly than randomly attempting them. So why do you want to leave them unnecessarily? Randomly attempt them, that's much better. I hope that answers your question, Kabir. Okay. So 2 mock tests back to back, 20 points more than your target, you are ready. And preferably your verbal score should be, your quant and verbal score should be consistent. At least a bare minimum should be there. The formula that I follow for this consistency is that you in the last 2 mocks, you see the lowest of your quant score and lowest of your verbal score. Just give me 1 second, guys. Just 1 second. So sorry, guys. So what you do is in this 2 mocks, you take the lowest of your quant score and lowest of your verbal score. And with this combination, if you can get your target score, well and good. Okay. So yeah, SB, you can go ahead and ask a question. If this is related to the discussion right now, I'm going to answer it for sure. If it is not related to it, then you can wait a little and I am going to open it for an open-ended Q&A, then you can ask it. Okay. So this is how you know. And try to book the time slot when you are most active. Again, I have seen students who are a morning people who work best in the mornings and they take an evening slot. And I've seen, in fact, even the worst thing is if you're a night person, and you take a slot which is at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. That's the worst thing to do. I have seen people doing that in the past. I have seen doing that. I'm a night person. I cannot wake up at 8 o'clock and be fresh. If I wake up at I cannot wake up at 6 o'clock and be fresh. I generally wake up at 8 o'clock. That's when I still feel that I have completed my proper sleep. So, and my mind is most active at about 10 to 12 in the night. And in fact, as the day progresses, my mind becomes more and more active. That's how I am from childhood. Now imagine that if I take a slot at 10 a.m. or 8 a.m., whatever, at night I'll not be able to sleep because I know I have to wake up early. And I'm not used to waking up early. So even if I sleep properly, and when I wake up early, I'll not be focused. So don't make such mistakes, guys. Book the time slot when you are most active. In fact, when you book the time slot, you should try and focus on actually taking your mocks also in that same time slot. Focus on doing that. That's very, very critical, guys. Okay. So you can discuss on the call also later on, SB. That's fine. I don't mind that. And if you're not confident of your scores, do not book the test. It's better to delay. I have seen people booking the test even when they're not confident about their scores. In fact, I've seen students doing the opposite of what I said in point 1. They take mock tests. In the mock test, let's say target is 720. In the mock test, they get the scores between 660 and 680 only. Okay, they go ahead and take the GMAT even then, assuming that on the GMAT they might as well get 30-40 points more. That very rarely happens, guys. It mostly happens the other way around. If you're getting a 660, 680, you will end up getting somewhere around 630, 640 only, in that range, or 650 max. That's generally the range that you get in. And the worst part is if you end up getting that score that actually breaks your confidence, that shatters your confidence, and taking the next step becomes much more difficult. So you should not book the GMAT unless you're confident of your scores. It's better to delay it. Now, what do I mean by advanced fine-tuning? So in 14 days before the test, you should book the test. I told you the criteria, when to book the test, how to think about it. Now let's talk about advanced fine-tuning. Let's say you have booked the test. You have 14 days left. What you should do then? You should divide your time into 2 parts. Devote 50% of your time on your weak area solely. I'm pretty sure that obviously you have done your fine-tuning a little while earlier, but now you're taking mocks for last 15, 20 days consistently. So you would have developed a sense of what is still hurting your performance. You would have developed a sense of what is still a weak area for you. So you have to devote 50% of your time, half your effort, on working on these weak areas solely. For example, let's say you're seeing that in critical reasoning, you are continuously struggling with bold-faced questions and let's say evaluate questions. So it is very critical that you right away focus your attention, give half of your time of your studies focusing on those areas, because if you trust me, work on those areas, that will give you a big boost in your score right away. So do that. And rest of your time which is there, you divide it in among taking mocks and general practice. Okay, and in this time you can solve advanced official guide questions or 700 level questions along with some medium questions. That should be your focus. Now let's talk about what you should do 7 days before the test. Okay, we're approaching towards the end of the webinar. You're going towards the end of the test also, very close to your test. The now is the time to focus on revision. I recommend you to start revising things now. What do you do in revision? How to revise in revision? Number one, focus on revision of concepts. And concepts are mainly there in sentence correction and quant. So focus on revision on concepts. You can focus when you're doing that, give priority to your weak areas. Then when I say weak areas, it is very important for like you to focus on the areas that you tend to forget. For example, SC is my strength. In verbal, SC is my strength. But still, I tend to forget the rules related to parallelism and comparison. And there was someone else also who talked about this, I guess, a little while earlier, that I tend to forget some topics. So if you fall in that category, you should be revising those topics. Definitely in the last 7 days, but probably every 15, 20 days, you should revise those particular topics. Okay, Shekhar has a question. He says, in the last 15, 20 days, should we resolve the solved official questions or should we take fresh unofficial questions asking for CR questions? So ideally, see, if you have solved the official questions very recently, then you should not do those again. Maybe if you still want to do it, I just say it because those questions are really good quality. So maybe about 20%, 30% of them can be solved, which you have done earlier. But yeah, doing fresh questions definitely is a very, very important part. So even if it is unofficial, all unofficial questions are not bad. Yeah, many people say that, okay, focus only on official questions. But see, the idea is you should be focusing on quality questions. Official questions are no doubt the best quality which is there, but there are many other questions which are of high quality as well. Manhattan questions are generally of high quality. GMATWhiz questions are always of high quality because we create every question based on an official question. So it's okay to practice unofficial questions also. There's no problem with that. And I agree that solving fresh questions is much more important. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Shekhar. And in CR, you kind of tend to remember the reason also. Like at least if I solve a CR question, it is something which will definitely I'll remember. Okay. Thank you, Shekhar. I'm happy to know you have understood that. Great. So in order to revise your concepts, first give priority to your weak areas, especially the ones that you tend to forget, and focus on practicing some additional questions on the revised areas right away. This is one important thing which I always did. That, okay, if I am, let's say, I tend to forget comparison related things. Now, in the last 7 days, I'll not just revise them. I will even do some more questions focusing on those areas specifically to see that being applied right away. And ideally try to do questions which cover all aspects, all type of varieties of questions, because it's possible that when you're generally doing mocks and tests and practice, there is possibility that in comparison, for example, you may not have everything being tested. So in this case, it is important for you to do additional questions focusing on all areas. Okay, so in this case, very important part is to focus on those things. And if you're a GMATWhiz student, you should do the concept boosters for your weak areas now. Because in concept boosters, if you remember, I said earlier, we cover every single variety of the questions that come from that particular topic. Okay, so I have a question from Girish. No mock test in last 7 days, as you mentioned. So again, I won't say that no mock test in last 7 days, but yeah, you should not be taking a lot of mocks in the last 7 days. Maybe one or maximum two, not more than two. More than two mocks is not recommended in the last 7 days. It's not the best thing to do, in my personal opinion. Okay, guys. So this is something which I would not recommend you to do at all in the last 7 days. Just give me 1 minute, guys. So if you are a GMATWhiz student, as I said, you can actually focus on doing the concept boosters once again. And in fact, this is a very critical part that you should do. So focus on additional questions for your weak areas. And then one last important thing, review your bookmark questions from your error log. See, many times what we do is we just focus on reviewing notes and reviewing concepts. But if you're not seeing those concepts being applied, sometimes it becomes a problem. Then you're just memorizing things. It does not help. And that is the reason I said, try to do questions which cover all aspects. Another thing which is similar to that is reviewing the bookmark questions. So I always recommend my students that when you're going through the course itself, you should bookmark questions where you get an important learning from. Irrespective of whether you get the question right or wrong, you should be in the habit of bookmarking those questions. And you should review these bookmark questions in the last 7 days very quickly, because learning a concept is much easier from a question rather than just reviewing it from your notes. So in GMATWhiz, we have an option of bookmarking questions also, and we keep your bookmark questions under your My Profile page for easy reference. You can actually go there and refer them very quickly. In fact, we are running an end of month sale on our platform right now. So in case you guys are interested in taking a look at our courses, you can actually check out our course right now. You will get it at the lowest price at which we sell our course. So you can check this on the website. I'm just gonna quickly get you the link of this as well overall. So this will help you to get access to the discounted price. This is gonna run till I guess 1st of May. So we run this at the end of every month, and this is the lowest price at which you can get the course. So in case you're interested, you can check it out over here. Now let's move to last day. What to do last day, just one day before the test. This is very important, guys. And just one day before the test, you should focus on the logistics and relax. Relaxing is the most important thing. This is something which people don't do. See, I'll actually talk about also what to do when you're anxious. A little bit of anxiety happens with everyone. Sleeplessness also happens with many people, but don't panic. Again, the main thing about relaxing is that you're able to control your panic as well. Even if you're panicking, you should try and relax yourself, calm yourself down. So I'll talk about the do's and don'ts both of the last day, like what you should do and what you should not do. Oh, okay. So Sekhar says that pray to every god out there. Yeah, so it is important that you do that. If you want to do, if you really believe in God, do that. Most important thing is that you have to calm yourself down. Okay, so that says I'm relaxing right now. Okay, so I hope it's the last day before your test. That if that is the case, that's the right thing to do. And I personally feel that, and this is something which I even recommend to retakers. Many times when people end up getting a bad score on GMAT, then they end up like they plan for a retake. Second time around, they actually focus a lot on cramming things. They focus on putting much more effort. You should actually not do that. You should try to calm yourself down, relax, and distance yourself from a test for some time to see exactly what went wrong. So relaxing is really, really critical. So the do's for the day before the test: get your documents ready. Don't let the documents wait for the last day, right? Whatever documents are required for taking the test, keep them ready with you. If you're going to a test center in India, mostly passport is the only thing that you need to take. I only took the passport. I did not take the appointment copy, which is not required. So keep the documents ready. I plan your day or visit to the test center. So if you're taking it from home, plan your day that, okay, when do I want to get up? What do I want to do after that? All of that should be planned. And as I said, you should be taking your mocks during the same time when you are taking the test. So basically you should plan your day or visit to the test center. If you're going to the test center, identify how far it is from your home. Plan it in a way that you have a buffer of half an hour in your hand in case you reach, like let's say you have to, in general you have to reach 15-20 minutes early before the test. Then keep about half an hour buffer so that anything bad happens you can actually focus on that. So Shivam, right now I would recommend taking GMAT online from home, not from the test center. uh, isn't GMAT postponed till the second wave is controlled? So I'm not sure. Test center would have been postponed, but GMAT online should be available, because for online again it does not get affected by COVID at all. So even if COVID wave is controlled or COVID is there or not there, I would recommend taking GMAT online now, because it's the same as the test center format. It's just that you don't get the ESI, but that's still a small thing. But otherwise, it's same as the test center format, and you can take it from the comfort of your home. So ideally, you should go for GMAT online. If you have a proper internet connection and everything like that. If you don't have a stable internet connection, you should go to the test center. Obviously, you have to also take into account the COVID situation at your end. In India, it's really bad as of now. I don't recommend going out and taking it from the test center. Take it online. So plan your visit or plan your day really well. Understand the route. If possible, go through that route and check it out. If you're taking it from the test center, I did that. I personally did that. I made sure I know exactly where my test center is. I calculated that amount of time required and I added half an hour buffer. You don't want surprises on the day of the test. You don't want to be running late and thinking about that, because that kind of creates panic in your mind. So don't do that. And as I said, relax. These are the do's. You have to do all of them. What are the don'ts? Number one, don't take mock tests. I see people taking mocks even one day before the GMAT. Many experts also advise it. I don't recommend that at all. Why? You get a good score, yeah, you're motivated, but you get a bad score, super demotivated. You will keep that in mind, you will worry about it, and that will impact your score. So I will never advise you to take that risk. Okay, so Ashina, good point. She says, when should we study for AW and IR? Ideally, in the last 7 days. Yeah. So along with revision, that is what you should also do. Now, ideally, I said I use the word ideally in the last 7 days because I was assuming over here that your CR and math skills are good. If your CR skills are good, AWA is a logical extension of it. CR and SC to an extent. All you need to do is go through the Chinese burn template, which is available on GMAT Club as well, and that will get you a pretty good idea about how to write AWA. In fact, I wrote my first ever AWA essay on the GMAT directly, and I read the Chinese burn template on my way to the test center. That's all I did. Like, to relax. I knew AWA does not matter as much as well. And I wrote my very first essay on the day of the test. I scored a 5.5 out of 6. Okay, so you have to be good at CR, SC, and you just need Chinese burn template. That's all. So anyone who needs the link for the Chinese burn template, also let me find it and give it to you. This will also help. So just give me 1 second, guys. So wait a second, I'm gonna share the link here for the Chinese burn template. Again, it is very easily available on GMAT Club. You can do a quick Google search and this will be the first link which will come up. So this is the Chinese burn template for AWA. IR is generally an extension of Quant. So if you're doing well in Quant, you just need to be aware of the various question types and all those things. So 2-3 days of prep is also enough. See, against that, I'm not of a different breed. I struggled big time with verbal. It took me a long time to get there. All I'm saying is, if you're doing CR properly, it's easy to get that. And it's not just me, many of my students have done this as well. It's just that you have to do good at CR. Then AWA is easy. Okay. So because AWA is nothing else apart from that. Okay, so good. So don't take mock tests last 1 day. Don't sleep at the time of the test. Don't sleep. Again, relaxing is important, but don't go to the extent that you're sleeping at that same time when you have the test. For example, your test start is at 4 p.m. and you're sleeping at 4 p.m. Should not happen. At 4 p.m., you want to be active. Okay, so don't take like sleep before on the same time of the test, and don't bring books to the test center. Okay, don't plan it in that manner, guys. I have seen, when I was taking the GMAT, I have seen students bringing their books and even studying from their books even in the last moment. Please don't do that. If you have not improved or you have not covered something on the last till now, on the day of the test, just doing something is not going to change at all. So basically make sure that you are not doing that, because if you bring books and you're revising on the last day, the more you revise, the less you feel you know. Actually, you will realize that, okay, you have not revised this, you have not revised that, and that will actually mess up with your mind. So don't do that. And that's why I said revision should be done 7 days before the test, not on the last day. Okay, so as Anul is saying, is it okay to skip a RC to cope with time? See, again, it is okay if it is in the last quarter. Before that, you should not be skipping it. And again, it depends also. So if you are very behind time and RC is not your strength, maybe that might make sense. So SB, you can use this link to schedule a call with me. I'm just sharing it in the comments. I've just flashed it on the screen as well. So you can use this link to schedule a call with me. How about some notes from SC and CR? Whatever, I don't recommend that. Even last day, no revision is required. Should not do anything on the last day. Last 24 hours, relax. Yeah, if you have revised in the last 7 days, right? I recommend you to do that. So do it. 1 day is not gonna change anything. Trust me. The more you revise, the less you will feel. You know it will impact you. But if you can maintain that calmness, if you can actually work with it, take it. Do it. Some people manage it, but I don't want to take that risk any day. Okay, so it's up to you. Obviously, as I said, these are generalized advices. Please feel free not to do certain things of them and personalize certain things according to your nature. So that brings me to the end of the webinar. I've tried my best to cover all the various steps. I guess it helped you understand how to go about the test day schedule and all of that. So in case you have any other questions, you can ask me now. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm available on piyush@GMATWhiz.com. I've also shared a link to schedule a call with me. I'm going to open up a few slots for the weekend, because I think my tomorrow's slots are going to be occupied. But in case you're not able to see some slots for the Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to open a few ones for that as well. So don't worry about that. In case you don't find those slots open, you can check it out a little while later. You will have some slots available with you uh, overall. Okay, so that way you can connect with me using this link, and that should help you. All right, so you can ask any questions that you have in mind there. Now I am open to taking up questions. Thank you, Shivam. I'm happy to know that you found the webinar helpful. It's really good to know. And thank you, George. I'm happy to know that the webinar was helpful for you as well. In case you really found the webinar helpful, please do give it a thumbs up so that more and more people are able to benefit from the webinar. This is something which will help more people as well, like you, who need this webinar. Girish says, how is Kaplan as a study material? Again, Girish, I have not used Kaplan myself. I've heard mixed reviews from my students. Some people say it's really good. Some people say it's not as great. So personally, I have not used it. So I'm not the best person to actually tell you how it is. I would recommend you to look at, like in general, whenever a person comes and asks me which course is the best, whether this is the best or that is the best, I recommend people to take a free trial, because all courses have their own things, own pros and cons. But if you look at the free trial, you are able to understand exactly which one suits you the most. For example, GMATWhiz is a platform which is a lot more personalized. It is the only platform which uses AI to give you a personalized course. All other courses out there will actually only give you the same course content to most people, and most of the courses do not have a proper study plan that is integrated with the course. They mostly have a templatized study plan which is not personalized for you. And at GMATWhiz, you also focus on application methods a lot more than other people. So again, these are my views on my course. Everyone has their own views, so I would recommend that you check out the free trial. If you want to look at GMATWhiz, you can check out a free trial of our website itself. Okay. Thank you, SB. I'm glad to know that you found the webinar helpful as well. So if you have any other questions, I'm here for a couple more minutes to answer your questions. In the meantime, a quick reminder about the sale. We are running a big sale on our online course, online prep course. It is available at the cheapest possible price. And it has 5 mock tests, 4,000 plus questions, 100 plus video lessons, a lot of things, including a dedicated mentor that you can access every 15 days for a 15-minute call. So if you want to check out our course, you can actually do that. Go to our website. You can do it easily from there. I'm going to give you the link also for our product. In case you really want to check out our product, you can go to our web page and do so. Just give me 1 second. I'll actually get you the link. So this is the link which is there. Thanks, Shekhar. I'm happy to know that you found the webinar helpful. All right, guys, I don't see any other questions in the poll. Okay, Ashina says, are GMAT Club paid tests helpful for quant practice? Definitely, Ashina, GMAT Club paid tests are really good. Like, again, there are some questions which are much more difficult than GMAT, but it's always better to practice a slightly more difficult questions overall. Okay. So yes, as we have tried to keep our course prices at a very low level. In fact, because of COVID, we have reduced our course prices a lot. In fact, it is the most affordable course over here. So you can actually check it out, and it offers a lot of value. It is one of the most advanced courses. As I said, it uses AI and it is very application focused. So check out the free trial. It will help you get a good sense of how the course is. And I'm pretty sure honestly, when I track the conversion rates, like, people love the course when they go through it. Okay. Thank you, SB. Happy to know that. Anyone else has any questions, guys? I'm more than happy to take them up. Okay. So I don't see any other question. Okay, Sanchit has a question. I skipped the part where you addressed the question for the last date to get GMAT score for fall 2022. Can you repeat? Okay, so Sanchit, again, if you're looking at fall 2022, that's generally when the colleges which start the college in July or August of 2022. The round 1 deadline will be generally in September. The round 2 will be generally in January. So if you're an international candidate, you should apply by round 2. In round 3, it is very difficult to get into the top schools. Round 3 is the last deadline, which is in March. So if you are looking at top schools in round 3, it is only possible to get in if you have an exceptional profile and exceptional score. But if you don't have an exceptional profile and exceptional score, better to apply in round 1 itself. Ashina, apart from OG, if you're looking at verbal practice, you should do questions from credible resources like Manhattan, Veritas, even GMATWhiz. Okay, SB, definitely you can reserve your questions for our meeting. I'll definitely look forward to having a discussion with you. Great. So I don't see any other question. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. It was really nice interacting with you. I hope you put all these things into practice and ensure that you are getting 100% out of the webinar that I had today. All the best for your GMAT, and I look forward to speaking to those of you who have scheduled a discussion with me. Thank you so much.